Yes, please. Come back in quickly. Right. Where that happens, can I just confirm if
Can hear you, but it's a bit muffled.
so, right. How is it now?
Still a bit muffled.
Okay.
We can hear you, but it's just not super clear.
Not super clear. Just once
Oh,
again.
it's better now. Yeah, we're good.
Great. May I ask you to project the Zoom so we can see the speakers and friends and our virtual audience? Yes. Right. For those just joining, you're welcome. We're just showing some an in-person networking for sure. Go. See us. Right. I believe the best version is to is that correct? Yes. If you could just unmute yourself.
Dale, can you say something one more time?
Hi, Joe.
Yes, Felix, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I'm doing good, and you?
So what again?
I can't get you very clearly.
Yeah, we can begin. That's okay.
I didn't get it. Can you say it one more time, please?
Okay.
Oh no, I can't. Your sound isn't coming through to me quite clearly yet. And I have switched off my video, hoping it would get better, but no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it is okay for a little while, but then it becomes muffled. So
Oh,
Felix, it may not be on your end.
okay.
From our side, we're trying to get that started. Probably a few seconds. Um,
Do you get me clearly there in the room?
yeah, can you give me?
I mean, maybe just indicate by a show of hand if you're getting me clearly. But I can't really get you clearly. Oh, okay. But I can't really get the sound this way. This way is not very good.
It's probably just a few seconds. Let me get this over.
Hello, please confirm if you can hear us now. Please confirm if you can hear us now. Hello.
I hear you, but it's not very clear.
I beg your pardon? Can you hear us now?
Yeah, can you speak maybe one more time?
Please confirm if you're able to hear us now. Hello.
It's still
Yes,
not
Pallavi,
very
can
clear.
you hear
Sorry.
me now,
Well,
Pallavi?
okay, you are clear now.
All right, cool.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, Pallavi, can you hear me now?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah. Apologies, we've lost about 10 minutes trying to get this sorted. That's still underway. So bear with me if you cannot see the people at the American Center, but we are very much present on ground. So welcome, good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for joining the session wherever you are. This is an exciting workshop, hybrid workshop. We started with a small networking session for the Ugandan community, sort of an intimate moment for us to talk about matters affecting Uganda as far as equality is concerned and all the work we've been able to do. So thank you so much. You're not missing out on anything. We're just getting started with the webinar. So let me just share my screen just to take us through what we're going to discuss today. Right, Pallavi, is that what you see? Do you see yourself on the screen?
Yep, we see the slides. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Yes. So just some housekeeping notes here. This is an hybrid session, like I mentioned earlier. We have actually people physically on the ground. Hopefully the camera gets sorted and you get to see them, but that's okay. We're recording this webinar, so please do let me know if you have any concerns. We have, for technical reasons, we do not expect the people in person to be joining from their devices. So please keep that to yourself. Keep your phone, keep your phones away, at least for the next 2 hours. Shared here some social media handles for you to follow. This is not exhaustive, so feel free to utilize the chat to share any contacts. So because we've lost 10 minutes, I'm gonna skip this a little bit just to get us started with the session. So allow me to introduce my moderators. We are honored to have two people, Dr. Felix Sasa, a senior lecturer of epidemiology and health at the Department of Medicine, Faculty of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. That's the University of Yaoundé. Yaoundé is the capital of Cameroon. Felix is going to be the moderator and also the resident translator. So if you speak French, feel free to type your questions. Felix will definitely be there to respond and ensure that you're fully participating. Professor Engineer Bernard Mugisha is in person via physical in Kampala, and is the chair of the Department of Computer Science and also leads the EACO team as the lead. But yeah, thank you very much. And I would like to hand over to Felix to let in the first session, the first panelist, that is Pallavi. Our first focus will be on navigating the funding landscape. So Felix, over to you, please.
Yeah, Dio, thank you very much for that kind introduction. And I think in the spirit of catching up with time, we will just move on straight to the first presentation. Pallavi has about 10 minutes. It would be nice if you can narrow it a little bit down. Pallavi is from the Health Effects Institute. She will be speaking about the funding landscape of air pollution around the world today. Pallavi, the floor is over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Felix. And I will try to be as quick as I can. Do you see the slide?
Yes, I do.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry?
Those on site, do you see the slides? Gio, can you confirm? Oh, we've lost Gio again. Pallavi, just carry on, maybe.
Okay, I will get started here. So, I think this is probably just preaching to the choir at this stage, but funding remains a very critical piece in taking air quality action where we would like it to be around the world. We are currently seeing high exposures to air pollution in many parts of the world, including in many countries across Africa. And here's just an example of what the levels of PM 2.5 look like and how countries compare against the WHO air quality guidelines and the interim targets. And as you can see across most of African continent, as well as in many parts of Asia were still experiencing high levels of air pollution, warranting action. And these exposures result in a variety of health effects. In 2021, it was estimated that air pollution resulted in over 8 million deaths, but they also result in very significant impacts economically, impacts on productivity, impacts on children who may not be able to attend school, and a larger societal impact. And yet, the current funding, regardless of which version of funding we look at, seems to be relatively limited. There's been a few different analyses trying to understand how much money is being spent on air quality related work in the last several years, including work that Clean Air Fund has done. So if you look at the international development funding, which is a basis for a lot of large scale research initiatives and also infrastructure initiatives in many countries, we see that air pollution gets only about 1% of the total development funding. That number has fluctuated a little bit during the COVID years because, of course, a lot of funding was diverted to COVID. But 1% is very, very low considering the scale of the problem. Another area that has been funding work on air pollution, both on research, advocacy, and implementation side, is the philanthropy, so foundations. And when we look at the foundations as well, at least in the African context, we see that there's a very small proportion of money going to work happening in Africa. A lot of that is still going to work happening in the US, in Europe, and in Asian countries, including India and China. And then another really critical piece of funding, of course, is what the governments at the national scale may be spending on research or supporting technical infrastructure or related activities. And unfortunately, in case of Africa, at the moment, we see that less than 1% of the GDP is being spent by countries on research-related activities. This is as of a couple of years ago, so the numbers may have changed. And this is averaged across the continent, where we know that countries like South Africa are probably spending a little bit more, and some other countries may be spending a lot less even than this 0.4% we have here. So in this context, how do we raise money to do the work that we would like to do, whether it's in the research space or in the implementation space? We know that there's different types of funding opportunities out there that can include, like I just mentioned, national or local government funding that can be either in the form of supporting specific research projects or setting up new capabilities within university infrastructure. It can also be international government funding that is coming in. I'll have some examples of that in a minute. A lot of bilateral and multilateral agencies, international organizations often also support work, although it is harder to find some of those directly, online and look for those opportunities. And then, of course, philanthropic organizations, and then a vast variety of fellowships, scholarships that can allow people to conduct research, buy equipment, etc. So if we look really big picture, who are the key funders? Given the state of funding that we, are in, the biggest funders, especially for research in Africa currently, are the large research agencies in the US, in the UK, and in other parts of the world. So the UK Research and Innovation, funding mechanism continues to be a really big way in which research in Africa, including for air quality, is being funded. Other UK agencies, including the Medical Research Council, the National Environment Research Council, and the National Institute for Health and Care Research, also fund work in Africa around air pollution. Often these are required to be collaborative efforts, so that there is a partner from the UK and at least one partner from an African country or a consortium of partners. And those types of projects have become very common in the last decade or so. In East Africa, for instance, right now, there is a huge project called Clean Air Africa being funded by NIHR and engaging a variety of researchers from multiple institutions across the region. We see similar efforts. Sorry, my animations are behaving strangely, so I'm just gonna bring them all on together. But similarly, in the US, we have organizations or entities such as the National Institute for Health, which has funding and fellowship opportunities for individuals, as well as grant opportunities for large research consortiums. The National Science Foundation, or NSF, has also several programs, including PEER, which is a huge program that often requires multiple institutions to collaborate together. And then also through Canada, we have the IDRC grants, which have been continuously focusing on environmental health issues, including air pollution, including climate change and other activities. But if we look within the continent, there are also funders who are supporting work. They're supporting science, especially work that is being done by early or mid-career researchers around a variety of topics. A few that I will mention here are the African Academy of Science, which recently started the ARISE initiative, which is intended to fund researchers based in Africa to conduct work on, again, they're not limited in scope to air quality, so you will have to dig a little bit to see where the best fit might be. The African Academy of Science also has other programs besides ARISE that may be relevant for funding, either for short-term or, a pilot scale activities or larger activities over many years. There's also the Africa Research Excellence Fund, which funds both research fellowships. The call for this year has already closed, but be on the lookout for the call for next year. And then there are smaller networks that have come up as a result of collaborations between universities. For instance, the Afritech network, which is led by Carnegie Mellon Africa and includes a number of African universities and educational institutions, or the Alliance for African Partnership, which is led by Michigan State University. Both these networks and others like them often have opportunities for either conducting in-person activities or to fund small-scale research projects ranging from anywhere between $25,000 to about $150,000. So those are more local opportunities that you can look out for. And then if you are really an early career researcher looking for opportunities to support your PhD program or your postdoctoral research or do exchange with another university, there are multiple options here, including for the European Union, the Maria Sklodowska action, which allows people to spend time at an EU institution and fund their research, and the research doesn't have to be based in Europe. So you could still be focusing on work that's happening here in Africa. There's also the World Academy of Sciences, which often has exchange opportunities, support for PhD fellowships, and support for postdoctoral opportunities. So look out for work that they are trying to do. And then there are organizations like the Wellcome Trust, so a philanthropic organization that funds research primarily. And they are very keen on funding work around environment, especially focusing on climate in low and middle income countries. I have a call that is currently open towards the end of the presentation that I'll highlight for you. And then other networks, large networks like Belmont Forum, also often have collaborative research opportunities. Most of these tend to be partnership style, so you would partner up with other people. And then one maybe slightly different opportunity that I'll mention could be relevant to some of you is Seeding Labs, which is a US-based organization, is working to expand access to instrumentation for labs in low and middle income countries, and you can apply to them. They have an inventory of instruments that they have access to, and you're able to access them if you're able to show why and how these instruments will get used. Check them out, especially if you work in a lab that does wet chemistry and requires instrumentation, reagents, and other materials. So I said I will highlight a few open opportunities. From the Wellcome Trust, there is currently a call for research centering on climate mitigation solutions. The call is open. The primary applicant in this call has to be based in a low and middle income country. That is a requirement for funding. And this is a funding for 2 to 4 years. So definitely check out whether some of your work is relevant for this. Wellcome Burroughs Fund also has a smaller opportunity. Applications are due in January, where you can begin some pilot work. Their focus is climate and health, and air quality is, included within that. And then training and skill building opportunities are often also very critical. So a couple that may be of interest are the African Research Excellence Fund that I mentioned earlier is going to run a grant writing skills program next year. It's virtual, but the applications for this program are due on January 8th. So if you're interested in learning more on that, check out their website and apply. And then similarly, the World Academy of Sciences is partnering with the American Association for Advancement of Science, or AAAS, to do a course on science diplomacy. This is a slightly different training, not just your basic research work, but really interesting for those of you who may be interested to work more closely with policymakers for science translation and to inform policy action that's happening in different countries. And then finally, because a lot of the people here, I assume, are researchers, I also want to highlight just a couple of opportunities for publishing your research, because that's another major barrier, either because research doesn't get accepted or because the fee for publication is really high with open access journals. And the Journal of Health and Pollution, which was recently relaunched and is now under the banner of EHP, Environmental Health Perspectives, which is a very reputed journal, is focused on research from low and middle income countries. They want to prioritize and publish work that's happening in LMICs, and they're also offering support for editing of the manuscripts right now. So if you submit a publication or manuscript and they consider it, they can do free of cost editing services for your manuscript. PLOS Global Public Health is another journal that has really good support opportunities for researchers submitting work from LMIC. So look at them. And then finally, if you work on air pollution and health, the International Society for Environmental Epidemiology has a peer editing program, which allows you to send your manuscript to them and get it edited. The service is free of cost, but it is only available to members of the network, and the membership fee is pretty low. So this is another way to, get input and help on your manuscript before you can publish it. So check out some of these opportunities as well. And if you have other questions or want to discuss any of this more, please feel free to get in touch. And Felix, I'll pass this back to you.
Thank you, Pallavi, for that very concise and exhaustive presentation on the funding landscape. It's quite interesting to see that there are quite a few people spending money around to promote the research on air pollution. I think according to the program, we would not take questions for now, but please keep your questions coming in the Q&A tab. Meanwhile, we'll move to the next presenter, Catherine Fox, from the U.S. State Department, who is going to talk about, in her first presentation, I think you have two talks to give, Catherine. So in the first instance, we would be expecting you to talk on the U.S. government grants opportunities and strategies for preparing successful funding proposals. Catherine, you have the mic.
Hi, everyone. Good evening for you. My name is Catherine Fox, and I'm the Air Quality Analyst at the Office of Environmental Quality within the Bureau of Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs at the U.S. State Department. And what that means is basically I manage the air quality grants. We are also a key funder for air quality grants worldwide, and so are many U.S. government institutions. And so in advance, I just want to say there's a lot of information on these slides, but these slides will be provided to you, so you can always look back later. I think that to get the most out of this presentation, it would be best just to listen and try to absorb what I'm saying. On to the next slide. So the objectives of this training is to show you where to find U.S. government opportunities, show you how to organize yourself and how to write a successful technical proposal, understand USG, which stands for U.S. government expectations on proposals, and then also learn how to spot your proposal strengths and weaknesses so you can adjust them before you submit your proposal. So for this first section, I'm going to show you where the funding opportunities are, how to find funding opportunities specifically for US government proposals. All right. So, funding opportunities. There are two main places to find opportunities. One of those is the grants.gov website. Now, this website is where all US government opportunities are posted, every single one. And that includes the EPA, USAID, the State Department, of course, NASA, NOAA, every US agency. You are going to find on grants.gov. And that's also the QR code at the bottom right corner that will lead you to grants.gov. And I'm also going to show you the webpage just a little bit later. And then another place where you can look for grant opportunities is actually on your local US Embassy website. So if you were to look at the Mission Uganda website, you might be able to find opportunities there as well. And then for people that are joining in from other countries in Africa, same goes for you, your local US Mission website. And then there are also two other places where you can find opportunities, but they're a little bit more specific. So one is the State Department Alumni Engagement Innovation Fund. And the other is the Middle East Partnership Initiative. If you want to look into those, you can, but I won't go into any more specifics since they are pretty niche. All right, next. So grant announcements have many different acronyms and it can be confusing. So the first one is NOFO, it stands for Notice of Funding Opportunity. The second one is RFP, stands for Request for Proposals. Third one is RFA, which stands for Request for Applications. And the fourth one is SOI, which stands for Statement of Interest. But all of those acronyms are ways that the US government is asking you to apply for funds. Many people think that NOFO is the only opportunity there is, but that's incorrect. All of these are possible opportunities that you can apply to. And let me show you actually the grants.gov website now. All right, so this is what it looks like when you go to www.grants.gov. And what you'll do is you'll go to search grants, this tab up here that I'm circling. And from there, you are going to end up to a search page. And on this page, you can actually, you can search for keywords. So you could search for Africa, or you could search for air quality. And then you can also do some other things with it. You can search for it by agency. So you can search for grant opportunities by State Department or USAID. And also categories, so you can search for it by acronym. So NOFO, RFP, SOI, all of those, if you're interested in a specific one and you know the differences between all of them. And then this is an example of a local embassy website where you can see that they, this was actually a couple years ago, but they posted multiple small grant opportunities. And by small grant, I mean up to like $25,000 or $50,000. So they can be significant amounts of money, but you have to look for them specifically on those websites. And then this is just an example of what a NOFO or an RFP may look like. This one is actually a call for proposals, and then it details how to apply and criteria. Funding priorities as well. It details, you can see here what your proposal needs to address, and then also details eligible applicants. So the call for proposals, or whatever acronym you're using, will be very detailed in asking you or telling you what they're looking for in a proposal. And then this is an example of the International Exchange Alumni website. And that's where you can find more opportunities. But we are going to move on to our next learning section, which is you've decided to apply. So I'm going to show you why the brainstorming phase is just as important as writing the proposal itself. So on to the next slide. Sorry, I'm juggling a few screens, so my apologies. All right, so, oh, my screen did something odd. Sorry about that. All right, so the first thing that you're going to want to do when you decide that you want to apply for a US government grant is you are going to obtain a UEI. It stands for a unique entity identification, and it's essentially just like a vendor code if you're familiar with grants. So by US government law, you have to register for a UEI at sam.gov. And you have to get this UEI number before you can even submit an application. And I'm telling you about this in this presentation now, because getting a UEI can take many weeks and sometimes even longer for international organizations. If you have questions on how long, I'm sure you could ask Deo. I'm sure it took him over a month to get a UEI. And it's very important because you will get rejected. Your proposal will get rejected no matter how much work you put into it. It will get rejected if it's late or if it's submitted with no UEI. It's by law. So another thing that you're going to want to do is that if you still haven't received a UEI and the deadline is coming up, then you should contact every single proposal opportunity is going to have a US government contact and email that you can send or that you can email to, and you can ask them for an exception. Sometimes we're allowed to get exceptions, sometimes we don't. It depends on the circumstances, but UEIs are very, very important. And I know it seems mundane and very boring, and it is very boring, but it's very, very important. So get that process started as soon as possible. And once you have a UEI, you get to keep that UEI for, I believe it's 5 years or 3 years. So you can continue applying for as many opportunities as you'd like, but this is just the very first opportunity that you apply to with the US government. You're going to need to get a UEI. Some other tips. So there's a lot of words on the slide, but basically all that they say is that we really, really want you to collaborate. Please collaborate. Our air quality projects are often multidisciplinary, meaning for our specific grants that we give, we are asking you to provide technical experts and project managers and media specialists and policy analysts and potentially other experts as well. So it's important that you know your strengths and that you find other organizations to work with that fill your gaps of expertise. We really want grantees to make connections with other organizations, and especially because we want to give money to the people that are living in the country that they are working in. So that would be you, everyone here online that's working in a country in Africa. So you should be working with others, and you should detail exactly who you're working with on your proposal and get a letter of interest for their support. So for example, we actually have a grantee that is living in Kyrgyzstan. Their organization is named Move Green, but what they did to make their proposal very strong is that they realized that they were very good at grassroots media organization, and they were well connected within the government. They had policy analysts, but they didn't have a lot of technical expertise. So they contacted Duke University over here in the US, who has a large amount of technical expertise when it comes to low-cost sensors. And what they did is they made a joint proposal with Move Green, living in Kyrgyzstan, and with Duke University, that is here in the US. And together they were very, very strong. And that's why that they got a $2 million air quality grant. And that goes to say you don't need to collaborate with someone in the United States to get a grant. Makerere University does not have a collaborator within the US, but it's just an example to show that when you know your strengths and know your weaknesses and really think critically about how to put together the best proposal with the best experts, you can get a significant amount of money. All right, next slide. So you have now done your research, and now what you need to do is you need to prove that you are an expert. On your proposal, you need to prove that you are an expert, or you are at least working with experts. And it's best to not assume that a person is reviewing your proposal and has detailed knowledge about your area of expertise. Because we have, I'll say more about this later, but we have a panel of judges for every single US grant, and not all of them are an expert in, say, low-cost sensors. Some of them are policy experts, and some of them are media experts. You know, we have a wide range of expertise on these panels. So don't just assume that whoever is reading your proposal knows what you're talking about, like any acronyms that you're using, spell them out. Make it clear that you understand what you're doing. And then you also need to explicitly state the need, what you need, what your proposal will, what problem it will help tackle, why that problem exists, and how your project is going to fill that gap or address that issue. You also want to make sure that you just don't duplicate any effort. So make sure that whatever problem you're addressing, there aren't any other organizations addressing it in the same way already. Next is you're also going to want to start small. So your proposal should be realistic. You should not be over promising on your proposal, because it is less likely to get funded, not more likely. Sometimes we get proposals that say, we're going to solve air quality in 3 countries in 3 years. And we're going to reduce PM 2.5 by 30 micrograms per cubic meter in 3 years. And that is not realistic. We know that that's not realistic, and we're not going to fund something like that. So your proposal should be realistic. You should understand the current state of your country or region's air quality journey, and then you need to figure out what the next step is. We understand that the air quality journey is iterative, and there are a lot of steps you need to take to improve air quality. And we're not asking you to do all the steps at once. We're just asking you to do 1 or 2. So understand what that next step is, and then focus on that next step and identify just a few things that you can do to move the air quality progress forward. We don't need you to do everything at once, right? Just tackle the problem 1 step at a time. All right, next is this is a big slide, but the main takeaway of it is that all communication with US project teams must be in English. You cannot submit proposals in any language other than English. So if you are not proficient in English, or not all of your team is proficient in English, make sure that you at least have a few people on your team proficient in English, or you have a translator doing that work for you. You can use your budget to have bilingual staff or interpreters. Next is, when are these opportunities coming out on grants.gov? Essentially, they're getting posted all year long, but mostly between January and July. However, you should be constantly checking for opportunities on grants.gov, and you can set up email alerts for grants.gov, so you don't have to check it every week or something. So if you want to set up email alerts, I don't have details on how to do that, but if you go to grants.gov, it will be quite easy. You put in a key search word, or you make your, I'm losing the word for it. You know what I'm talking about. You can go ahead, you'll see it. Go ahead, make some email alerts, make it easy for yourself, and make sure to check for opportunities very frequently, because the opportunity to apply is usually open for 45 days or less. This slide, it's not necessary when you're preparing to write a proposal. It's just there in case you're curious about past projects that were funded in your region. Both of these websites show every US government funded project in every single country ever funded. So it could give you a better idea as to what actually gets funded in your region, if you were interested. Next, so how are you actually going to write a successful proposal? And the key is to be very organized and very logical about it. So where are you going to start? First, you want to read the proposal very, very carefully. First thing, make sure you qualify. And we'll go over more in the next slide. And we'll go over all of these more on the next slides, but you're gonna wanna make sure that you qualify first, and then we'll start from there. After you are sure that you qualify, you're going to read the announcement, and you're gonna want to read it multiple times. So you don't want to write a full proposal and find out that you are ineligible because you forgot to submit one section or you didn't include details on one thing. So if you do not follow the instructions exactly, unfortunately, you will be disqualified. It's just US law. It's not us being strict for no reason. It's just we have to follow the law. So make sure to read the announcement multiple times so you don't miss anything. And then also make sure that your idea for your proposal fits. It's not enough to just have a good idea. The idea needs to fit the grantor's need. So if it doesn't, no matter how good your proposal is, it's not going to get funded. And then also a trick that I like to do is that when you read the proposal, I always print it out, or you can also do a PDF and get a highlighter on the PDF, but highlight important language so that when you're getting ready to submit your proposal, you can go back and make sure that you've met every single criteria. Highlighting definitely helps me. Next is you're going to organize your outline. So the grantor is going to show you how they want your proposal outlined, and they might also give you a rubric or some other specific instructions. But essentially, you're going to want to model each section of your proposal off this rubric. So usually proposals are graded on a scale from 0 to 100. And they're going to show you how many points go towards each section. So say 10 points go towards how you explain your organization and its capabilities, you know, what you've done in the past, your track record. And then another 30% goes towards your project idea. Another 20% goes towards your financial management, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to have a rubric for grading. So you're going to want to model each of your section of your proposal off this rubric. So at the top, you're going to say organizational capacity. Next section is going to be project idea. Next section is going to be financial management history, right? You're going to clearly show that you meet every criteria on the rubric. And that way you can get the most points possible. And it also makes your proposal easier to follow. You're also going to want to use language from the announcement. So this is a little trick as well. If a funder says they want someone to build capacity, air quality, technical capacity within Uganda, then you're going to want to use those exact same words in your proposal. You're going to say, we are going to build air quality technical capacity in Uganda by. You're going to want to make it very easy for the grantor to identify where and how you are fulfilling their needs. So use their language, you know, speak the language that they're speaking. Next is you're also going to want to pay attention to page limits. If a proposal is only supposed to be 10 pages long, if it's 10 pages and one sentence, you will unfortunately be disqualified as well. So don't take too long to describe, or don't take too long on sections that don't have a lot of point values associated to them. So again, looking back at the rubric, seeing that, you know, your project proposal idea has 30 points attached to it, and that's the most amount of points available for any of the sections. You're going to want to devote the most amount of time and space on your proposal to that section. And you're not going to want to devote a lot of time to say, key personnel, right? If the key personnel section is only 5 points, you're not going to want to make that an entire page. You're not going to want to give a paragraph to each person, right? You're just going to say they have X years of experience, resume attached separately, or resume upon request, right? Don't spend a lot of time on things that aren't getting you a lot of points. Next is you're going to want to make a checklist. So for me, checklists are key. And this is because, again, if you're missing even one element that is required in the call for proposals or the NOFO or the statement of interest, any of those acronyms that I gave you earlier, your proposal can be disqualified. So having a checklist, having highlighted all those important elements, that makes sure you don't miss anything. So assign next is after you make a checklist, you're going to want to assign each checklist task to a specific person or team and with deadlines. That makes sure that every single task gets completed on time. And bottom line, if you don't submit your proposal on time, it's disqualified automatically. So being organized, having a checklist, making sure each person is accountable for their item on the checklist ensures that your proposal is going to be on time and well written. Next is your calendar. So once you've written your checklist, you're going to want to add due dates to each item on your checklist and work backwards from the due date of the proposal. So make sure that, you know, if it's everyone's job, if the proposal is due on July 10th, you don't want to have everyone, their due date isn't to get you their section by July 10th. It's their job to get you their section by July 1st, because then you're going to need one person or two people or three people to make sure everything is cohesive and it makes sense together, and that you do have all the items on the checklist and that you're not missing any elements. You want to give yourself plenty of time to double check your work. So work backwards from your due date. Your due date is not July 10th, it's July 1st, you know, just as an example. Give yourself time. You also increase your chances of getting a grant if you review your proposal multiple times. I can't tell you how many typos, pretty significant typos, that I see in proposals that obviously took a lot of time to put together, right? They're 10 or 15 pages, but sometimes there's significant issues that whoever was writing the proposal could have solved if they had enough time for one more review. So give yourself enough time. Nothing is ever perfect on the first draft. Make multiple drafts, get yourself a good finished product. All right, now it's actually time to write the proposal. I feel like I've already been talking for 20 minutes and we've only just now gotten to the section where you're most likely interested in. But there's a lot of words on this page, but all that it says is that funders fund their needs, not your needs. So make sure that your idea matches up with their funding priorities, and make sure your proposal is realistic and it includes a budget, it includes a timeline, and it includes the detailed activities. Don't overpromise. In this case, ambition is not always the best thing. So follow the application guidelines. And of course, again, I keep saying this because it's really important. Read the proposal, your proposal multiple times, but also the call for proposals multiple times. All right, next thing, this is a test. And you have two options here. This is an example of what you could write on your proposal. Say the funder is asking you, I'll use the same example as earlier, to increase air quality technical capacity in Uganda. And it's your job to say how you are going to increase air quality technical capacity in Uganda. You could say option one, in both regions, the project, or in Uganda, the project will develop the capacities of government and other stakeholders to monitor and manage air quality and facilitate the implementation of the new Uganda action plan. That's option one. And it does say what you're going to do, right? Option two says we're going to develop national and subnational air quality management capacities. Activity 2.1, establish and support a regional practice and organize a webinar series. Activity 2.2, facilitate 3 virtual sub-region. Oh, sorry, my screens are getting crossed. 3 virtual sub-regional dialogues. Activity 3, organize 1 in-person regional training. Now, I can't see you raise your hands, but I'd like to see everyone, or maybe Dale can see me. Who thinks option 1 is the best? Short and sweet, they can ask you questions if they have more. Who think, no, no one thinks option 1 is the best? No? Anyone think option 2 is the best thing? I see no hands either way. I see 1 hand for option 2. Well, I'll just go ahead and tell you the right answer. The right answer is option 2. And I can't tell you how many times I get option 1. Option 1 does give detail. It shows that they are competent, right? It shows me that you know what you're talking about, but it doesn't show me how you're going to do what you're talking about. I want to know, if I'm going to give you $500,000, I want to know how you're going to perform what I'm asking you to do. I don't want to know just what you plan to do. I need to know how you're going to do it as well. So option 2 gives me details that are clear and measurable. It says, I'm going to make a webinar series. I'm going to have this many sub-regional dialogues. I'm going to have 1 regional, or I'm going to have 1 in-person regional technical training. It gives me details. So all of your proposals, whether it's for US government or any other funder, should give details like option 2. It should be able to lay it out. It should be able to be, it's very clear, and it gives you numbers attached to it. One technical training, 3 dialogues, right? You don't want to just say, I'm going to facilitate virtual sub-regional dialogues. No. Say how many you're going to facilitate. Budget that into your proposal. Those option 2, if I see that, and when proposals come my way, because I review proposals for the US government, I write the call for proposals and then I also review them. If I see option 2, I'm going to say, wow, they know what they're talking about. I love it. Because I get option 1 more often than way more often than option 2. So be option 2. That's the moral of the story. All right. Roles and responsibilities. So once you've written your proposal, you're going to want some help reviewing it. And I think that you should have multiple people reviewing this, because you're going to want to use the expertise of others, get a different point of view. So you can ask for assistance reviewing from a mentor, a former grant winner like Deo, or any other grant winners that might be in the audience, alumni of your program. If you're in an academic institute, you could ask for your partners to review it. So people that you're getting letters of support from. And then also friends and family, if they're maybe very good at grammar, could be. But one more thing on this slide is, yes, make sure that the grammar is good on your proposal. So for example, if you want to say that, I'll go back to the same example. The object of the proposal is to increase air quality technical capacity in Uganda. You have 2 options. You could say air quality technical capacity in Uganda will be increased by holding 1 regional technical training. Sounds okay, right? But that grammar is not correct. What would be correct would to say, my organization, Airquo, will increase technical air quality technical capacity by holding 3 regional dialogues. So you're going to say, I am doing this work, not this work is going to be done. You want to say, I am doing this work because you are doing this work. That's just one example of grammar, but grammar is important. Make sure you have someone look at it twice or even use an AI like Grammarly. I really like Grammarly. But I'll move on. Next slide. I think I'm running out of time soon. I am running out of time.
Yes.
I will do this in 1 minute. This slide is essentially just if you want to come back to it, it has additional details. It's reiterating points that I've already made. And then again, try to submit your proposal a few days before the deadline. Sometimes international organizations have trouble submitting because of the system. And then, you know, they're doing it on the last day and then they don't have time to email the contact within the call for proposals and say, hey, I'm having trouble submitting. Like, what should I do? Try to submit it a few days before so that if you do have trouble, you can email or call the point of contact listed on the notification of funding or the call for proposals or whatever it is, because we don't want to have to disqualify you. I know you've worked a lot on this proposal. Don't let it be you. Don't let it be you. Conclusion, I've already said this before, but we evaluate all proposals using a point system 0 to 100, and then every successful proposal is chosen by a impartial panel of experts. They don't have any conflict of interest and they're not involved in the direct management of the project, and it's to keep everything extremely fair. So, you know, just because an organization has received a grant before, like Makerere University or Duke University, or Move Green that I mentioned before, it doesn't mean that they're going to receive it again, because every single proposal is reviewed by, every single call for proposals or every single NOFO has a different panel of judges. And they're judging you off of the rubric, not off of anything else. So they're extremely impartial, they're extremely fair. I'm here to make sure that it's extremely fair, and we also try to diversify the panel. You can see here that we have different experts on each panel. Again, it's an impartial process. This is just to give you some transparency on how all our proposals are reviewed. But the final decision always rests with someone called the grants officer. It's a legal thing. And they're another impartial party to make sure that, you know, there aren't people getting unfair advantages. So just so you know, there's no nepotism here. It's a very, very impartial process. And even if someone wanted to push forward someone's proposal and say, hey, we really want you to fund this person, it's not possible, because there's so many people overseeing the process. All right, lastly, I'll just say, again, really combine efforts with other people, work together. That's all that this slide says. Moving on. I think we can skip this slide as well. You'll get everything and good luck. I'm sorry I went over time.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was an excellent cheat sheet. I think it's really useful that, especially for the young researchers, they get to understand the whole funding procedure and the funding landscape. It's true we are running a little bit ahead of over time, but it was really interesting to get that full comprehensive presentation on how to get money. If we don't get money, we don't get research going. So it's really important we know how to get the money. I think the questions that were put online have been answered. I think people were just trying to be sure that they can always refer to this cheat sheet. Joe and Co will be sharing the slides as well as link to some of the resources that were mentioned. Engineer, is there any questions in the room?
Yes, please. Yeah, thanks. Felix, can you hear me?
Yes, I can get you.
Yes, I'm wearing two hats now. I'm engineer today as well.
Oh,
So,
okay.
right. So the colleagues in the room, please, you write your questions, and then one of my colleagues in the room as well will be able to push them through. But before you go to the Q&A, first of all, thank you so much, Catherine, for giving us the cheat codes. I think this is a rare opportunity, and we're really grateful. And I know it's quite a lot of information to take in. And that's understandable. We don't expect this to be something, over a few slides, a couple of hours, and then everything is okay. But I guess it starts the practice. And before we transition to the next session, we want to do a small exercise, and that's going to be a quick survey, so that this is a participatory process. It's important to get to know where the pain points are, and not for us to assume what exactly should be should be a priority for all the participants. So Pallavi, is Pallavi still on the call? Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So we have actually, let me project something here. So I have a 5-minute Mentimeter poll for all of us to participate in. Let me pull it out. There you go. Right. So if you can just, you've got two options: either scan the QR code on the screen, or you can enter this code. The code is 318099954 to this link, www.menti.com, and then you should be able to find the survey. Can you do that in 30 seconds, please? Anybody? Because I'm switching screens to go to the results. Yeah. Can you do that in 30 seconds? Right. Right. So I think the first poll question, which of the following best describes you? We want to know who is in the room. So mixed responses there. What stakeholder constituency do you represent? I guess this is in order of preference. Great. Policymaker, researcher, academia, graduate student, including PhD, civil society, NGO, development partner, including funding agency, journalism and media, private sector, and other. Right. Anybody having challenges? Lots of research and academia in the room. Perhaps not surprising. What happened to the policymakers? Yes. Right. Can we go to the next slide? How did you know about today's workshop? This is just for us to appreciate what could be most effective. I see only 13 responses. We are 72 on the call. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you. Through Airco, email, invitation, LinkedIn. 17 responses, not yet there. Right. I'll move to the next slide if we hit 30. Then I know we are, yes, not yet there. The physical participants should also be participating, I believe, through their phones. Should you? All right, I've been requested to project the QR code again for the physical participants. Let's keep the responses coming. Right, I'm just doing this for the physical participants. I hope this is okay. So you've got 30 seconds to do that. Right. Couple more questions to go. Right, 25 responses. Have you been part of, this is important, have you been part of any grant application process as a primary applicant, the keyword being primary? Oh, wow, that's a big number, 14. Yes, as a primary applicant, that's a lead applicant. You have a grant proposal you're submitting and you are the lead applicant. Has that been the case for you? Yes, let's keep them coming. Couple of new entrants. Yes. Mm-hmm. The next question. On average, how many grant submissions do you make in a calendar year? Calendar year starts from January to December. The 12 months. How many grant applications do you make in a calendar year? This includes the submissions where you are not the lead applicant, even if you're just participating in the grant process, in the application process that Kat was describing a few minutes ago. How many do you submit? Wow, up to 4, 10. Couple new entrants, above 8 submissions. That's incredible in a calendar year. So that is 2 submissions a quarter, every 3 months. Impressive. Majority, up to 4 submissions and new entrants 12. I move the next slide. How many successful funding applications have you had in a calendar year during the last 5 years? So within a year, how many have you had over the last period of 5 years? Great. There's lots of money in the room. Yeah, 17. Right. I hope Kat doesn't see this, no? I'll skip that. Right. This is about the money. How many successful funding applicants? Successful funding applications have been, sorry, for all the successful funding applications, what has been the highest amount of funding received in USD over the last 5 years? The highest could have received 10 grants. And then, what was the highest from the 10, from the pool of 10? Is it less than 100K? Is it 200,000? Is it between 200 and 1 million? Is it more than 1 million? Right. Wow. 7 people with more than 1 million. Impressive. Great. How many projects have you concluded in the last 5 years? Concluded projects? Okay. So I'm going to pause the Menti here and we can get back to questions and answers. I think that's incredible. We've got 2 more questions to go in terms of the surveys. But before I get to the audience, let's just make sure there are no questions in the chat here. Felix, do you have anything coming your end? Any questions coming in?
Oh, no, no questions so far in the chat room.
Okay, I've been requested to share the Menti relay link here, which I'm going to do. It's okay, you can still participate even after, while the call is underway. I recognize that not everyone will be able to scan this. There you go. The link is there. Please, we need your feedback. Great. yes, just to confirm, we're going to share all these resources, so no worries. This is going to be circulated after the webinar, but we do need your feedback. It is important for us to help us structure this and have this tailored to your interests and your priorities. Right. Ibrahim Mohamud Adawe, you might want to restructure your question. Could you retype it again and try to provide more context to the question? I'm going to give someone permission to ask a question, and I'll start from Eden Teshome Bejiga. I'll allow you to talk. Go ahead, Eden. Unmute yourself. Eden, can you hear me? Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead, ask your question. And where you're joining from as well.
Yeah, I just want to ask if you will share all the documents that you have presented. Is it available?
Yes, it will be available. We'll share this after the webinar. Thank you very much. Is that the question?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, if your question is about the resources, don't worry about that. We're going to circulate all this, including the recording for the webinar, so that you can always go back and make references to the same. I do recognize that it's a lot of information to take in. So yes, I can relate to the pressure. So don't put pressure on yourself. This is going to be shared. So let me ask Gloria Atwine. If your question is not related to the resources, let me allow you to talk. Gloria. Gloria. All right. So I've got right. So there's a question here. I think it could be for Pallavi. Let me spotlight you here as well. Pallavi. I don't know how to spotlight you. But anyways, the question is about this is Pallavi, Catherine. You both of you can come in here. How can an organization get a list of some of the companies? I believe this is referring to companies/organizations that are working in similar areas for collaborations. In other words, how do we make these connections happen? I feel like I know the answer, but Pallavi, I guess is my job. I think that's for you and Catherine to come in here to respond to that. How can we make collaborations happen? There's 3 other questions.
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think it's really critical because, we often say you need to collaborate with people, and then it's really hard to find the right people. Unfortunately, there aren't any lists available that you can, refer to or look up people. What I would recommend doing, and this does take a little bit of time, is trying to search online or look within your network if you already have connections with groups. I think Catherine highlighted a couple of websites where you can see what other work has been funded previously. One other place to look up relevant people, and this is just maybe like a shortcut, is look at major conferences in the space, and which if you can get speaker list or attendee list on the website, you can very quickly see what types of things specific people may be interested in. And then don't be shy to reach out to people, or if you know someone who can connect you with the right person, don't be shy to do that, because often a lot of this happens very organically, and it does take time, but there isn't a shortcut that at least I know of. And Catherine, I'll let you add.
Yes, Catherine, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize my mic was on already. Sorry about that. Yes, I second everything Pallavi said. And then also wanted to add, she said, don't be shy, and please, please don't be shy, because the US government, we prefer to fund people that are living and working in the countries in Africa, if we're funding air quality work in Africa. US universities and US institutions, they want to hear from you. If you need like a technical expert or say an NGO or a policy expert or someone to fill your gap, a gap of expertise that you don't have, you know, they want to collaborate with you because that makes them more likely to get money as well. So just adding that.
Hi, Joe. I think there are a few questions from the online platform. I think first question is from Ibrahim Mohammed, who says he's living in Somalia and would like to know whether he can have access to apply for personal funding. I think that question should be for Catherine.
You said access to
Personal funding.
I'm sorry, I still can't hear that word. Something funding?
Yeah, personal
Personal.
funding as an
Personal
individual.
funding.
Yeah, I think that speaks to what Pallavi actually spoke earlier in terms of the funding landscape. But Catherine, feel free to take that.
Yeah, I think for funding, so personal funding is what I'm assuming to be like funding for an individual. And I see another question in the chat from Richard on a similar thing. And I will say a lot of the funding opportunities that I mentioned, and I would suspect that also Catherine spoke about, are intended to be institutional, support type of grants or contracts. So the money often will go to an institution, and there will be people within the institution that can then work on it. There are some cases where the funding is specifically for individuals. That tends to be more in the category of fellowships, or specific types of like travel awards, etc. But even in case of certain fellowships, they require you to be affiliated with an institution which can manage the funds, because there's a lot of the funders prefer for money to go into an institution that has a mechanism for tracking the funds and for sort of carefully managing how that money is spent versus providing the funds to individuals. So there's fewer opportunities if you're trying to look for funds as an individual. In that case, the better option is to look for consulting type opportunities, which are not necessarily grants. But if organizations are requesting consulting opportunities and they're asking for specific expertise, then you apply. And in that case, individuals are certainly preferred in some cases. But for a lot of what we're talking about here is more geared towards institutions and then people affiliated with institutions.
All right, thanks. So in the interest of time, we're going to move to the last segment of this conversation, which is on best practices of managing grants. I was quite impressed by the amount of responses, confirming that people actually do have some bit of experience in terms of one, accessing the grants, applying for the grants, accessing the grants, and also now what about managing? What are some of the things that some of the boxes we need to check, what is really important for this? But before that, I want to summarize the conversation, the two presentations as follows. We do need to network. We need to collaborate as much as possible, collaborate, network. But most importantly, you need to be prepared and organize and be prepared and organize, ensuring that you actually do qualify for all these opportunities. But aside from that, now we want to talk about how we can be able to manage. What are some of the best practices? I believe this also applies to all the other projects, not necessarily air quality. And Kat, again, you will take us through that session. Kat, you have 20 minutes to go.
Great. Thank you so much, Deo. I'll try to keep it to under 30 minutes because I know we're running behind. But let me share my screen. Can you see it?
Not yet, it's coming through.
Oh, okay. Let me try again. All right. Can you see it now?
Yes, that is clear.
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, great. So we are going to talk a little bit, like Deo said, about grants management and best practices. So for reference, I told you a little bit earlier that I help manage the air quality programs, all the projects at the State Department. And I also write the call for proposals and help review them. But I'm also typically the main point of contact for all of our grants. And I'm just going to share with you a few lessons learned on how to create a good relationship with your grantor, and how to essentially create a safe space between you and your grantor where you can share your issues and they can help give you their expertise, and in such a way that you feel as a grantee that you are supported, and also that the grantor feels like they are getting the objectives that they need met. So it's a two-way street. It is a relationship that takes time to build. And I'm just going to kind of walk you through how to first get that relationship started, and then also how to keep it positive. So maybe some of you, I saw a lot of you have already received grants. So maybe, you know, you already know how to get a relationship started, but maybe it's a little bit difficult for you to maintain a positive relationship, or maybe you're feeling some strain in your current relationships with your grantors. And hopefully I can give everyone something that they can take back to their work, and help improve their relationships. So I'm going to move to the next slide. All right, so we're going to start with, you have the funds. Now what? So we're, like I said, I'm going to be going over these best practices after you've written a proposal and received the funding. That's just stage one. So following this advice is going to help you implement a successful project. But first off, we're trying to help you build a positive working relationship. I'm having trouble with my computer. One moment. All right, got it. Sorry about that. So the first topic is how to build a positive working relationship and why that's so important. In my experience, in order to have a successful project, you need to build mutual trust between you and your grantor. There's no other way. And this is the most important aspect of project management because it's going to impact your everyday life. The first thing to do when you receive funding is to host a kickoff meeting. So this is the first step towards building that good relationship. And this is going to be a meeting where you set your expectations, you're establishing a relationship, your grantor is explaining the finer details of the grant and answering any questions you may have. You are discovering your grantor's connections and your grantor's capabilities. So example for the State Department, we have the embassy system. So I often connect grantees to additional support on the ground. So they're called ESTH officers. It's the people that you work with at the embassies, or the publicity folks at the embassies. to kind of help you throughout your project. Deo is very good at utilizing the embassy system, so if you have questions, you should ask him. But essentially, that's why this meeting is very important, because it starts the relationship building process. You're getting to know each other. You know, the only thing that you really know about, the only thing that grantors know about you is what you put down on a piece of paper on your proposal. And the only thing that you know about the grantors is that institutional name, right? You don't know the point of contacts yet. You don't know, you know, their personal connections. You know, for me, yes, I have the embassy system, but I also have a lot of other NGO connections with people in the US, with other universities and organizations. So you're just trying to get to know each other. After that kickoff, though, you're going to want to establish the main point of contact and who needs to be copied. So this is essentially you figuring out who you're going to email directly or call when you have questions or issues, or who you're going to be turning project documents into. This is important because they're a resource for you. So having that good relationship is essential. And then also you need to figure out who to copy on your correspondence. So for me, that's my, that would be my boss. And that's to help maintain organizational records, which is something we'll talk about later, but organizational records are also very important to having a successful grant. Another thing that you're going to do, likely during the kickoff meeting, is establish how involved the grantor wants to be and what their communication expectations are. So for me as a grantor, I like to meet with my grantees every month. And then I also have, you know, if they have any questions or issues between that time in that month, they're free to call me or email me. And I try to get back to them within 1 or 2 business days. But not all grantors are like that. Some grantors want to be more involved, and some grantors just want to meet quarterly or maybe semi-annually, but you need to ask them what their expectations are. So that way you're both on the same page and you're aligned. Because there's nothing that erodes trust quicker than a breakdown of communication. So knowing how much to communicate what your grantor wants to know and when is very, very important. And we'll go over examples later, but you may not think something is important, but for them, it might be important. Like a change of staff, you know, you're like, oh, it was the financial administrator. It's not a big deal. We're going to find a new one. You may not think that's a big deal, but perhaps like for the US government, like we need to report that to the grants officer for your project to stay in legal compliance, right? So this kickoff meeting is a way to establish like who needs to know what and when. So keep the communication open, and that trust will come, I promise. You're also going to establish a scheduled regular check-in and who's taking notes. Again, this is very important to be on the same page with your grantor, but also you need to take notes to have records of these expectations of your grantors. So something that you can look back on, and you know, it kind of covers, sorry for the lack of a better term, it covers your butt and it covers their butt. So if you said that you were going to do something and the grantor was expecting you to do something different, that's bad. It's better to have it written down so you're both clear. Okay, after this meeting, I'm sending you the meeting notes. This is what we talked about. This is what I'm going to do. And that way, no one on either side can say, oh, I didn't understand. Because again, that's something that erodes trust. Last thing that you're going to want to do when you're first starting out with your grant is you want to make sure that you're always being proactive and transparent. And we've talked about this a little bit already, but I'm reiterating things because they're very, very important. Keep your grantor informed of project progress without prompting from them. And you should be straightforward. So if you are having issues with the project, it's very important to be honest because your grantor is a resource for you. Say that you're having an issue within the first month of the project. I'll use the same example. Someone on your team suddenly quit. And they were a major technical expert, and it's going to take you some time to find a new one. You don't want to hide that from your grantor, because for a couple reasons, mostly because it will damage their trust in you as a grantee, especially because it's happening right at the beginning. You may think like, oh no, I can fix this, it'll be fine, like I'll just do it as soon as possible, and no one really needs to know. It's not that big of a deal. But you're right, it's not that big of a deal, but the grantor needs to know, one, so that they can document it, so that like in case you're late on any of your project deliverables later in the project, there's a documented reason, and they can say to their boss like, it's fine, like they're still very good at their jobs, they're just running a little bit behind because they had to get someone new on board. But also because your grantor is a resource for you. You know, you might have someone, you know, quit early on in the project, but we may have other people in mind that could be a technical expert that you could hire. I mean, personally, I have a large like contact book of technical experts. And if you needed someone within the US or even in Africa, I could suggest multiple contractors for you that might be able to fit your needs. So it's not just being about honesty and being honest with them. It's also recognizing that they're there to help you. You know, we're not here to police you or try to be a roadblock or make you feel bad when things go wrong. We're here to help you. And we want to help you too. And allowing us to be a resource for you and asking us for help. You know, when you ask someone for a favor, that helps them build trust in you. It's the same thing socially as it is within work. So being honest and transparent is just only going to build trust. It cannot break it down. I promise. So even if the issues are large, it's better to share immediately because it just solidifies your relationship even more. And then again, also like I and other grantors, we've seen many projects come up, and we can also help you find solutions. You know, maybe something else works for another project, or help you connect with someone that had the same issue. But working together can only strengthen your relationship. I am already behind schedule. This is horrible. All right, I'm going to do a quick test for you. And again, I can't see the audience, so this might not work well at all. But first question is, one of your main team members just announced their retirement. Option 1 is hire a new person to fill their role, then notify your grantor of the change. Option 2 is email or set up a meeting with your grantor, letting them know the situation and what your plan of action is. Who says number 1 is the option or the better? Oh, I just realized my slide didn't change.
Yeah,
who says
first slide, yes.
Oh yes, sorry about that, everyone.
That's okay. Okay,
so this is your 2 options. Option 1 is hire a new person. Option 2 is email and set up a new person, or email and set up a meeting with your grantor. By a raise of hands, who thinks option 1 is the better option? All right, who thinks option 2 is the better option? Okay, so option 2 is the better option. I'm sure most of you figure that one out. Option 1 is good because you are trying to be proactive and you're trying to solve a problem. So that's why many folks might think that option 1 is better. You're like, I'm taking initiative, I'm fixing it now. But option 2 is better because it's showing proactive communication, and it also gives the implementer a chance to weigh in on the situation. Like I said, like they might know experts that could fill that role. And again, it's just building your trust together. Now, the second question on the test, you're having trouble getting the government or any other institution engaged in your project. Option 1 is to schedule an introduction to your project webinar and invite those you have been trying to get a meeting with. This is an easy, low-stakes way to encourage participation. Option 2 is meet with your grantor and describe the problem. Now, who thinks option 1 is the better option? And who thinks option 2 is the better option? All right. So option 2 is again better. Option 1, it does show initiative and it shows dedication to your project's success, which is great. However, option 2 is better, is a better choice again, because your grantor will have the chance to weigh in and provide advice. Together, you may decide to go with option 1 anyways, but by deciding together, you're going to, again, strengthen your relationship with your grantor. So the main takeaway from this slide is that you should be, that your grantors are not just funders, they also act as advisors and they have valuable expertise, and they want to help you. All right, next slide, if I can get my computer to work. My cat keeps unplugging things. All right, next is proper reporting. So I'm going to talk to you about what that looks like, what to do, and why it's important. So the most important thing is to be on time. That's pretty self-explanatory. You don't want to be the grantee that the grantor has to follow up with. Being late can make you look unprofessional and it can harm your working relationship with your grantor. Next is my advice is to use a template, either make one or ask for one. It standardizes your reporting, it saves you time, it's fabulous. It makes it easier to look at your project over time and also look back on trends or track trends. Templates are my #1 time saver. And I highly recommend them. You're also going to want to be specific and efficient on your reporting. So that means you don't want to make the shortest report possible, but you're also not getting bonus points for an extra long report. Just include exactly the amount of info necessary to fully understand what you're trying to convey and no more than that. Just to the level of detail needed for people to understand you. Like we're having monthly meetings, right? I wouldn't need you to describe the problem in 100% like as if you're starting from the beginning. But I just need you to recognize that there was an issue and like what you did to solve it, something like that. You're also going to want on your reporting, you're going to want to highlight important points. And when I say highlight your important points, I mean literally highlight them or bold them in your report. This increases the readability of your report and it allows grantors to quickly see what you think is most important. You're also going to want to report on your successes and challenges. As we already established, your grantors can help you work through your challenges, which is why that's important. But on your successes, that's equally as important because you want to keep a record in case anyone ever asks for a list of your accomplishments. I think that when we have these multi-year long projects, we often think of successes as, you know, just the end product, right? But there are always small successes in between. And, you know, when you're looking for your next funder, having a list of those small successes can only help you get additional funding. And then also having that list, when you finish your project, say you just finished a project with the State Department, and you want to ask them for a letter of recommendation. Now, a lot of funders, when they provide letters of recommendation, they cannot say like, oh, we really enjoyed working with these people because they have like strong ethic and they're really passionate. Like, we can't say things that aren't measurable. We have to keep things factual. So if you ask us for a letter of support from us, if you have a list of your successes, that's what we can put in that letter. We can put, they successfully organized a webinar of 100 people, and 80% of those people said that they would want to join again. That's something we can put in a letter, and that's impressive. So keep a list of your successes. And also, as a grantor, I like showing you off. I mean, pretty much everyone within the State Department knows about Makerere University. You know, we want to, I'm always looking for opportunities to show them off internally and also to the public. And we also post about them on our social media. So highlight your successes so we can also highlight your successes. And then lastly is it's important to keep organized records as well. Me as a grantor, I'm going to keep records, but electronic filing can fail, and it has failed before. So if at the end of the project there are any missing reporting that we don't have because our system crashed and you can't find because, you know, perhaps like you don't have good organized records, that is going to be, that means you're going to have to rewrite the report, and that really stinks. That really, really stinks. So keep organized records. And then also, in case you have to add your own new team members, or maybe me as a grantor, I have new team members, having organized reporting helps us you know, go back and you can look at them quickly and say, this is the progress we've already made, this is what we're doing. It's just easier to onboard people that way. All right, next slide. Numbers to make an impact. That is a very vague statement, but essentially what it means is that, or numbers to make an impact is the same thing as impact numbers, which is the same thing as goals. It's the same thing as milestones, indicators, and targets. They're all numbers. So for us as the US government, but also just generally for grantors, but for us as the US government, every single year I have to make a report to show to Congress and say, hi, you gave us money to improve air quality in Africa. Here's how we improved air quality in Africa. And I have to hand them a report with numbers on it. And I have to be able to clearly show Congress that progress was made and that they should continue giving us money. And that's the only way that I can continue funding programs in Africa, which I very much want to do. And so does the US government as a whole. We have a commitment to funding air quality initiatives in Africa. But in order to make that report, you have to show us, the grantor, or any grantor, not just the US government. You have to show the grantor that your project is succeeding and it's on time. So when you are at the beginning stages of your project with your grantor, you are going to want to set those indicators, those milestones, those goals. And sometimes they'll tell you what they want. Like we have a list of things that we want from grantees, but also a lot of time you get to set your own goals, milestone indicators. You get to use your expertise to choose. And what you want to think about is, what would be helpful for my grantor to know? What indicator would be helpful for them? And what indicator shows that our project actually helped solve this problem? So like with Makerere University, one of the indicators is number of people engaged on air quality issues. So that includes things like this webinar. And I think there's about 100 people or more coming here to this webinar, and they host webinars all the time, right? So at the end, at every report, they tally up how many people came to all of their events. And I think within this last year, they reported over 3,000. And I handed in my report to Congress and they said, wow, that's awesome. That's incredible. And I said, yeah, it is incredible. We could, you know, with some more money, we could do more things like that. So that's why impact numbers are important. You know, they're not just like something for you to like tippity tap into your computer and say, I guess we did this much. No, you should be proud about your impact numbers. You should be proud about your indicators. You should say, look at what we did. And also use your expertise and your knowledge to tell your grantor, add your own indicators and say, I think you should know that we did this. But I'll move on. I think you get it. We're going to go to the lessons learned part of our presentation. And this is the last part of our presentation. So
yes, Kat, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Yes. I was actually flagging the time as well. That's okay. Cool.
Thank you. Yes, 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So lessons learned. This is my lessons learned. This is what I want to share with you. I've been a project manager for 7 years now. And if I could give advice to any new grantees or grantees that have been receiving funding for a long time, this is what I would give. I think it's really important for you to document your challenges and the solutions that worked for you or what didn't work. And that's specifically important because, like Pallavi said earlier, there's a very limited amount of funding for air quality right now, and we're trying to get more funding for air quality. But part of that is proving that we're not duplicating efforts. Also documenting your issues is only going to help future projects in the air quality field. And it'll also help you when you're designing your next proposal. But essentially we can't afford to keep funding or making the same mistakes over and over and over. And it's not a measure of failure for you. Like if something doesn't work for you as a grantee, that is not, I would not call that failure. And the reason why is because grantors, we expect challenges and we understand risks when we are granting you money. We know that not all projects are going to be a success, but at the same time, I don't believe in failure because everything is just a lesson learned. And that's me as a grantor. So if I don't believe in failure, then you shouldn't either. Because we're all just working together to improve air quality or whatever issue that you're working on. The goal is long-term. It's to improve air quality. And we understand that it's not going to happen in one project. So being honest about any issues, not only, it gives you respect from the grantor, and it's not going to hurt your chances for future funding, especially if you're honest and open about them. And if you say, this is what I would have done differently next time. I think that is something that I give the utmost respect to. So think critically when you encounter issues, document them and work with your grantor. And then lastly, don't be afraid to pivot if your approach isn't working. Grantors, again, we understand that plans change sometimes and and we are just as committed as you are for a successful project. So using your lessons learned, you can work with your grantor to find a better approach. And that just all leads us back to why, this is my concluding thought, why it's important to have a good relationship with your implementer. And it's because if you don't have a positive relationship with your grantor, you run the risk of your project getting canceled when you run into issues, which means that they will pull back the funding instead of working with you through those issues. So if you have a good relationship, they are much more likely to want to continue working with you through the issues and then also work with you again on a second project, even if the project did not achieve the outcome that you wished for. So again, be honest, be transparent, make a good relationship with your grantor, and I guarantee I guarantee that you will be able to work through any issues that your project comes to. And that is it. Thank you so much, Dave. And thank you for everyone in the room for listening to me. I really appreciate you. I know I talked for over an hour today, so you're awesome.
Great. Thank you, Kat. Yeah. Can we get a physical clap from the room? And from our participants online as well. Yes, thank you. Great. Right. All right. Yeah, thanks. So there are a couple of questions online. We're gonna pass this on. I think some of them have already been answered. Questions around specific funding opportunities. Say, for example, can my student, is it okay to apply for a grant to work in one country? I think the answer is yes, that has been answered already. That's from Follow Olaye. In Nigeria, we're actually doing work with our colleagues in Nigeria, so it's possible to apply for grants locally and even with international collaborations as well. I think all the other questions have been answered, so I would like at this point to flash our Mentimeter poll again, just in case someone did not have a chance to complete the poll. I think we had 2 critical questions needed to conclude. I see, let me just share my screen here. Right. Can you get this going? To what extent do you agree with the following? Information regarding funding opportunities are always readily available and accessible. 1 person disagrees. 9 people disagree. Hopefully, with this session today, we'll probably have, some great. Yeah, I see numbers improving now. Great. What is the next question? Thanks so much for already doing this even before I projected. In not more than 3 words, what would you like the funders like Kat to know about the barriers on access to funding that has already been highlighted, that actually there is not sufficient funding available for all the, for contexts like in Africa. So what would you like to know in not more than 3 words? I think complexity seems to be very prominent here from the word cloud, and some of the other questions, some other open-ended question here around the specific questions we like people to, we'd like the funders to know. Okay, I'm pausing here. I'm going to ask Felix if he has any other questions or any other additional thoughts to share before we go into the next segment. We are wrapping up, don't worry. Felix?
Actually, no burning questions for now, Dale. I think we can move on as we have just cut off with time.
Right. Thank you. So, great. I'm going to share my screen again. Just making sure nobody has the hand raised. Felix, is this what you're seeing on my screen? Emerging opportunities?
Yes, emerging opportunities, announcements, and closing remarks.
Okay, so we started our meeting today actually with an in-person networking session with the community members in Uganda. I think one thing we didn't talk about was to share some major announcements and emerging opportunities. This is also the time for anybody in the audience, both physically and virtually, to request for the floor to make an intervention on the same. But that said, I think there's lots of questions around how can I get the fund? I'm just an individual, and the answer to that is you need to network, collaborate, and collaborate some more. And one of the avenues to do that is through participating in sessions like this, through participating in other physical convenings, in conferences and workshops. We are fortunate that, at least in Africa, for the 3rd year now, we shall be hosting the next Clean Air Forum. That's going to be in Nairobi. So look out for any notifications, emails, just like you're able to access information about today's webinar. That is going to happen, and that is next year in Nairobi in July. So stay tuned, and we thank Nairobi, of course, for stepping up and offering to host the forum and taking over from Lagos. I did want to, I think there was a question around how can we get the list of collaborators. So the UNEP and the CCSC recently, and Kat, please correct me if I'm wrong, recently launched the AQMX, that's the Air Quality Management Exchange Platform, Resource Exchange Platform, to be able to share information and share resources in terms of how to collaborate and how to, how to document all project successes, project stories, and everything else I need to know about air quality management, not just in Africa, but globally. So this is an exciting opportunity. This is going to feature very prominently as well in the upcoming Clean Air Forum, plus several other avenues. So stay tuned. I think that's a good opportunity as well to access. For the coming year, we'll be sharing all this. I think in the case of Uganda, we are proud that we have a legacy initiative that brings all of us together. And now, of course, being scaled across Africa, that's Air Quality Awareness Week. We are fortunate to have the US ambassador participate through an actual op-ed in the national dailies this year. And we even opt for more engaging opportunities for the next edition of the Awareness Week. And we look forward to collaborating with many more cities on the same, to try to have sort of like tailored models, tailored versions of the Awareness Week, as you've seen in Lagos with the youth-led campaigns, you've seen in Accra, in several other cities. Lots of exciting things to look forward to in the coming year. And speaking of which, I would then like to firstly thank all of you, but also acknowledge the presence of Luis Salas, who is the head of the economic chief of the US Embassy here in Kampala. And of course, my senior colleague here, Professor Engineer Banomugisha, who will be giving some closing remarks. So I'd like to have Engineer to come have some few words, then he can invite Luis Salas to close the session today. Thanks so much, Engineer, for being patient. And the floor is yours. You can see me now today. Let me spotlight myself. Right.
Thank you, Dale, and thanks to all our, moderators, the speakers, as well as the participants for being active. We started the session today with kind of an in-person community engagement here at the American Center in Kampala. And we are privileged to have Amy Peterson, the American Embassy, opening the session. And then we had, great speakers also from the community sharing some of the works they are doing. Dr. Rosie Nakasi talking about the work she's doing on AI in health. Joe Walker telling us how we can do safe walking in our cities, how we can make our cities safe for walking. Hakim from EB also telling us about safe cycling. Michael Wanyama from Auto Safety also trying to tell us how we can also have clean, mechanical activities, car repairs and so on from our garages in the city to improve our air quality, but also most importantly, leveraging research and data to improve air quality in those places. And we just had, very informative sessions. Thanks to the moderators. Felix, thank you so much for moderating. And of course, Deo as well. And our speakers, Dr. Pallavi from Health Effects Institute. Thank you so much for sharing with us the different funding models. I'm very sure that the audience will be able to pick up the different opportunities that have been explained, and hopefully we can leverage this funding, not just for air quality, but also for many other research programs across the continent as well as the world. And Kat Fox, thank you so much for very elaborate, informative session on how we can access the US government funding, but also sharing the best practices and lessons on how we can leverage this. I think this is really important session for the community. We can grow the community if we can work together. But of course, we also know that working together requires some, funding opportunities, partnerships. So I think this session is really a very good milestone for us as a research community across the continent and beyond. And I would also, of course, want to acknowledge our partners, the US Embassy, hosting us at the American, Center, but also introducing us to, different partners across the continent and elsewhere as we work together to leverage, research to improve health outcomes on the continent and also globally. So I would like now to invite Luis, who is going to give us closing remarks. Yes.
Well, thank you, engineer. It's nice to be here with you today, everyone. Good afternoon. As engineer mentioned, my name is Luis Salas. I am the Economic Unit Chief at the U.S. Embassy here in Kampala, Uganda. So I am very excited to be here with you today. I know you had a session all day long organized by AERCO, which is a very close partner of the U.S. Embassy, on talking about air quality, but even beyond that, it seems, on issues, many issues related to health and safety. And this is all really important work. And why is it important work, you might ask? Well, for example, on air quality, just earlier this year, Makerere Lung Center, the Makerere Lung Institute published a paper that showed a link between air pollution and health here in Uganda. And so I want to share a couple of the findings just to illustrate my point. So the paper found that between 2019 and 2020, Kampala's fine particulate matter, which is of course the international standard for measuring air pollution, was between 5 and 12 times higher, 5 and 12 times higher than the WHO recommended maximums. It also showed that there was a correlation between a rise in air pollution and increased hospital visits here in Ugandan hospitals. So imagine the physical and economic toll that this has on the lives of Ugandans. It's not just another set of statistics. It's really, really a wake-up call. And it's not just air quality. I know we've heard from people today who have presented some work on how to incorporate AI in health, safe cycling and walking. There are other challenges that we must tackle in order to improve our health outcomes in general. But air quality is one that the U.S. Embassy and AERCO in particular have really partnered strongly in. And because of its importance, and also the embassy's long history of partnering and working with the Ugandan people, in 2017, we installed the first standard air quality monitor in Uganda over at the embassy compound. That monitor was a critical first step on the air quality issue. But for its installation, we partnered with stakeholders like AirQual and NEMA and KCCA, to begin to really, really tackle the challenge. So in 2020, for example, the U.S. Embassy brought in an American expert to work with NEMA on drafting air quality regulations. And I'm happy to say that NEMA launched the first air quality regulations for Uganda in May of this year. And that was partly due to our cooperation, our collaboration together. But, you know, regulations are critical for making an impact on the lives and the health outcomes of everyone living here in Uganda. But regulations mean nothing if they're not well informed or well enforced. And so that's where the work of AirQuo and other partners, your groups, really come in. Accurate data is absolutely essential to our success. Our reference grade monitor at the embassy is very accurate, but very expensive. And so it's not really realistic to expect that more than possibly a handful of these could be really installed in the country. And so that's why we, again, partnered with AirQuo, and in 2022, Department of State awarded the organization a grant to develop and install low-cost air quality sensors all over Uganda, but not just Uganda, also in Lagos and Bujumbura, Accra, and Yaoundé as well. Now, these air monitors are cheap. They're affordable enough that you can just deploy hundreds of these, as AirQuo has done. And when calibrated to a standard monitor like the one we have at the embassy, we can truly ensure the accuracy of the readings. And so the data that these sensors provide really enables a critical mass of expertise on air quality issues. And with this data and expertise, which many of your groups can provide in all sorts of different challenges to health outcomes and people's well-being, with that data and expertise, lawmakers at the city, provincial, and national levels are empowered to draft effective regulation and conduct informed enforcement of the regulations. So while politicians and government officials deserve credit for taking action, other stakeholders like you, everyone here today, play a very important role as well in our shared goal of increasing our livelihoods, or the quality of our livelihoods, our health outcomes, and when it comes to air quality, just the air that we breathe, and increasing the quality of that. So I hope all of you today came away with something actionable from this workshop. You know, whether it's a renewed sense of purpose on the mission of your organization and your group, and how you can really contribute to the betterment of our lives and the health outcomes, or also ideas on how you can find partners to join with you. Funding streams have been discussed to help support your activities. And I really, truly wish you all luck and look forward to collaborating with as many of your groups as we can. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And on that note, this is the end of our session, but we're gonna request the panelists, that's Kat, and the physical audience, who, I don't know how this works, but we have an expert in the room on photography. So we're gonna take a quick photo. And the back, yes. Right. Felix, do you want to unmute yourself? You want to turn your video on? I'll add a spotlight. There you go. I not be participants. I'm going to join them as well. Thanks, everyone. Thanks all the participants. And see you again in the next session, in the next webinar. So have a lovely holiday.